Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. My name's Hallie. I am the Wildfire Mitigation Communications Program Manager here at Pacific Power. Today we've got a great team of our experts up here. I'll introduce them in just a moment, but we also have several of our local Pacific Power folks here. We've got our Regional Business Manager, Jessica. There you go. Our Operations Director, Kevin. Our Area Manager, Jeremy. Did he make it? Nope. Just kidding. Our Distribution Manager, Alicia. We have two vegetation management folks here. We have Lorelei and Heather. Give us a wave. There we go. We also have our VP of Customer and Community Solutions, Corey. And our VP of Communications, Aaron. Awesome. Also in the back, we have our customer service team. They're here, happy to answer any questions for you, look up anything on your account, so feel free to drop over and talk to them. We also have Marlene, yep, there she is, from the Oregon Department of Human Services, Office of Resilience and Emergency Management. She has a super cool little spinning wheel and some super awesome prizes, so definitely go talk to her. But before we get started, as I mentioned, we have some of our experts up here. So we have Chester Lampkin, he's our senior meteorologist. We have Nora Yatsov, she's our Director of Emergency Management. And we have Melissa Swenson, she's our Director of Wildfire Mitigation Program Delivery. So today we're here to talk to you guys a little bit about what we do as a company to prevent and mitigate wildfires, and also what you can do in your own day-to-day routine to help be prepared. But we're gonna start off with a video that'll go over some of our wildfire mitigation and prevention stuff, just to kind of give a nice intro to the things we're going to be going into more depth on this evening.
We are living in a world where there is more extreme weather, and wildfire risk continues to escalate. Here at PacifiCorp, we are making the investments necessary to protect the public and to protect the infrastructure and to protect the people of this company as well.
While the wildfire risk has been increasing here in the West, the investments that PacifiCorp has made has risen right along with it. To date, we've already spent over $500 million in wildfire mitigation, and the current forecast for deploying the system hardening that's involved in the wildfire mitigation plan reaches into the billions over the next 8-10 years. It becomes important to understand, well, where do we prioritize those investments? And so we want to make sure we're targeting that large investment where it's going to make the most impact, where it's going to reduce that fire risk the most.
We have an expansive weather station network here at PacifiCorp. By the end of 2023, in Pacific Power, we had nearly 300 weather stations, and in Rocky Mountain Power, we had nearly 200 weather stations. They're there because we're collecting important meteorological data that we're going to feed into our local weather forecast models. Temperature, wind, moisture levels, wind gusts. These hundreds of weather stations give us better data so that we can make better decisions on how to mitigate fire risk and how to protect the system from extreme weather events.
So by establishing an internal meteorology team, they're able to run these risk models with our own weather station network to help identify that risk no matter where and no matter when across our entire service territory throughout the year.
We have amazing, really cutting-edge technology. We have a computer model that covers more than 1 million square miles. It forecasts weather for every single point across that entire region. We have access to two types of modeling. We have the short-term modeling and the long-term modeling.
With both that long-term and short-term view, we're able to identify where the fire risk is, and by identifying that, we can then decide what mitigations to deploy.
We've taken 30 years of historical data, and we use that to identify areas of potential risk so that we can mitigate as much as we can ahead of potential wildfires in the future.
By looking back at that data, we understand that when the conditions are at their driest and when the wind is at its windiest, that top 5%, when those two things come together, that's where 98% of the catastrophic fires have occurred. When those conditions are present, we want to, for safety reasons, de-energize the lines and let those conditions pass. And so we deploy that when we know that the conditions are escalating but they're nowhere near that top 5%. And so we give ourselves a little bit of a safety buffer, say a 15% dryness, 15% windiness, to make sure that we're making a good balanced decision between the risk and the outages that are created through the mitigation steps of de-energizing.
I'm optimistic because I know that we are doing the work necessary to keep the public safe and to protect the infrastructure of the utility.
As that risk has increased, our response has increased as well to match it and do everything possible to reduce that risk of fire in the areas we serve.
So as great as that video is, it is actually a little out of date. We have now reached $1 billion in wildfire mitigation investment as of the end of 2024. And by the time we're at 2027, that total will be $3 billion. So this is something that we take very seriously as a company. It's something we're working very hard toward. That's why we have all these great people here tonight to talk to you about it. The video covered some of the different activities we do, and so for us, we look at these as kind of different buckets where we do our different mitigation activities. The first is situational awareness, and so this is understanding what's going on right now, what's going on 5 days from now, also understanding what the risk is using those historical models, and Chester's going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. We also have our operational practices, so this looks at how we operate the system safely and how that maybe looks a little bit different during wildfire season, whether we need to put on certain safety settings or, adjust equipment and things like that. And Melissa's going to cover that. We also have system strengthening and resilience. This is probably what you see the most. This is when we're out rebuilding our lines, putting up new equipment, making sure that it is more resistant to fire and that we've done the steps necessary to keep the system safe. And then underlying all of that is our engagement. So that's why we're here tonight. We want to be able to go out to all of our communities and talk to you guys about what we're doing for wildfire mitigation and prevention. Not only just our customers, but the communities, regulators. We meet with other utilities, our public safety partners. So it's a really important topic for us. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get the word out and have these conversations. So you can see a map here of Oregon, our entire service area, but you can also see a pullout for Astoria. On the map of Oregon, there are some little purple blobs kind of towards southern Oregon, and then another little purple blob up by Hood River. Those are what we call fire high consequence areas. So those are the areas in Oregon that we've identified that have the higher risk for fire occurring, and that those damages could be catastrophic. That doesn't mean that the risk everywhere else is zero. Here in Astoria, we don't have any FHCA, fire high consequence area, but that never means the risk is zero. There's plenty of vegetation out here, a lot of wind. And so we have to, we try to get out to our entire service area, not just those areas in purple. You can see here we have about 60 miles of distribution, but also another 60 of transmission. So a fair amount of stuff going on in the area, 6 substations. And as I mentioned, I introduced some of those local folks. We have several folks here from our local office who are going to talk to, who are able to talk to you kind of about our specific service area. If you have any questions about that afterwards, we will stick around. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chester to talk about situational awareness.
All right, thanks a lot, Hallie. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chester Lampkin, and I am a meteorologist here at Pacific Power. I think everyone's already gotten their meals and stuff, but if you need to eat some more, I'm not insulted if you get up while I'm talking, so please enjoy the meal. And thanks for coming out and spending some time with us. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you all coming out and engaging with us to learn more about wildfire and what we're doing to lower the risk of wildfire in the community. So again, I'm a meteorologist here at Pacific Power. I have been with the company just under 2 years. So technically, this is actually going to be my 3rd fire season because I came in right in the middle of fire season in 2023. And I've been with the company since then. Prior to that, I actually worked in media for several years, and I've kind of worked all over the country, and really excited to be out here in Oregon, based here in Oregon, We actually, my family and I, we moved to Portland, and that's where we're based, and a couple other meteorologists also out in that office. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with this stand today. But the reason why I want to reiterate that I've only been with the company for a couple years, I've learned a lot, and I'm sitting next to some incredibly talented and smart meteorologists who've taught me so much. But the point of that is that I was a customer just like you all just a couple years ago. I was just a regular utility customer. I knew nothing about how utilities work. I didn't know anything about the work that it takes to keep the lights on and the work that it takes to keep the community safe. So I've learned a lot in these last couple years, and I'm just impressed with the program that we have here at Pacific Power. We are doing what is necessary to lower that risk of wildfire. So we'll talk more about that. I'm going to talk more about that short-term situational awareness that Hallie was mentioning, and then we'll talk about a little bit later about some of the long-term work that we're doing, and Melissa will talk more about that and some of the other staff that is working to do that as well. Nora's going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. So this is true really anywhere. More extreme weather is happening all over the United States. I've lived all over the country, Texas, Colorado, Missouri, Maryland. I've been all over, now Oregon. And it's especially true here in Oregon. We're seeing more extreme weather. Doesn't mean we're not going to have like regular weather days, beautiful days like today, but when the extremes happen, they are more extreme. We are seeing more wildfire across the western United States, and we're definitely seeing it here in Oregon. Burned a record amount of acres last year here in Oregon. It's affecting everybody. It's a community problem. And so you all are here to engage with us, to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. Well, our top priority is to keep you safe, and that's definitely the number one job for us in the meteorology department, is to keep the community safe, keep our linemen safe, keep all of our employees who have to be out in the field safe, the vegetation workers, everybody. And we're one of the first utilities in the country, and one of the first in the West to invest in a meteorology department that is housed within the company. So we work for the company. Our forecast is specifically for all the distribution and transmission lines that go across our territory. That's our job. And it starts with that situational awareness, knowing what is happening. A lot of people have heard that phrase, especially folks who are law enforcement, military, et cetera. For us, situational awareness is literally knowing what is happening right now, what are the conditions outside, really everywhere where we serve electric utility customers. In Pacific Power, that's 3 states, and our sister company too, Rocky Mountain Power, that's another 3 states, Utah over to Idaho and Wyoming. And us on the team, there's a team of 5 of us, soon to be 7, maybe more in the future. And we all work together to be aware of the situation of what's going on. We are always aware of what the weather conditions are, what are the fire weather conditions as well. And our job, again, is with that situational awareness, we're able to tell operations what is happening fire weather-wise and weather-wise, and then they are able to take that information so that they can operate the system as safely as possible. So again, situational awareness is about what's happening right now, what's happened in the recent past. That includes what the climate has been doing over the last few months. The last time we had a good drenching rain, that has an impact on your fuel moistures and fire. We'll talk more about that coming up. How was the winter? Was it a rainy winter? Was it a snowy winter in the coastal ranges? Was it a snowy one in the Cascades? Those all have impacts on our forecast and our background conditions for wildfire. So it's good to know what's happening, what has happened, and also we use that to glean what's going to happen over the next 5 days. We issue a 5-day forecast that we give to operations every single day of the week throughout the entire year. So again, 5 meteorologists at Pacific Corp. That's our parent company. Pacific Power, we've got 2 in the office in Portland for now. We are expanding, and then we have 3 meteorologists currently in Rocky Mountain Power at Salt Lake City. But again, we all work together. We're in meetings together. We forecast for each other's sides. When there's an emergency on one side, the meteorologists are responding on both sides of our companies, our sister companies. We work together as one team. We meet with each other face to face, virtually. We go to conferences together. We're one team. And we're always supporting each other, and we're always supporting operations for both companies. Winter, of course, for us, as you know, out here in Astoria, you're a very windy place. We spend a lot of time stressing out over the wind and trying to get the wind forecast correct. In the summertime, we are laser focused on wildfire. And even in the winter, when we're dealing with winter storms, in the back of our minds, we have wildfire on our mind. I always like to tell, the audience, as soon as fire season ends, we take a deep breath. Next day, we get ready for the next fire season. We're prepping for the next fire season. So we've been prepping for this fire season since last October, when the rains came in and calmed wildfire along the landscape. We have weather stations all across throughout our company, and we use that to help forecast the weather. These are weather stations that we own. We talked about it in the video. You can see those blue dots. That's all of the weather stations as of the beginning of this year. There's nearly 200 in the state of Oregon that we own. We also use weather data from other sources, National Weather Service, the National Interagency Fire Center, the state departments of transportation. Any weather source that we can get, we use that to help inform our weather forecasts. Our weather station network provides information and monitoring 24/7. It's all along our distribution and transmission lines, or very close to those places. And we use that, again, to, as inputs to our own weather forecast data, our own forecast model. And all of those weather stations are tied to our circuits or our distribution. That's the lines that connect to your homes, and along our transmission as well, which is the big power lines of the largest poles, if you will, or the big structures that carry power across the entire state of Oregon and from other places. So essentially, we use that data to make a weather forecast. So if we are distributing power to your home, you're a Pacific Power customer, we know what the weather's doing in your neighborhood. We're watching the weather where you live. I want to point out that we do have planned weather stations. We talked about it in the video as well. It says 12 planned for this year, but I suspect that number will actually get bumped up. And we already have several in the Clatsop County region. If you look in the very top right corner of that, we've got several weather stations. Not too many to list, but we've got one right here at Youngs River, just south of Astoria. There are several up in the Napa area. And we have one of our favorite weather stations. I call it our favorite. It's called 1080 Peak. It's due east of Cannon Beach, and it is one of our windiest weather stations as well. We're always keeping an eye on those atmospheric rivers and the big winds that come in the wintertime, and of course in the summertime when we have offshore wind events, which is the time of year when we're most concerned about critical fire conditions across the territory. So there's a map there. Those green dots are our weather stations throughout the area. So there's a lot of them out here. We also use the weather station, the Department of Transportation weather station right at the bridge here. We use the FAA stations, any station data that we can get, we ingest it into our network as well. And you can see all that data for free at pacificpowerweather.com. All of our weather stations are up there. It's got humidity, temperature, et cetera. If you click on the weather station, you can actually get a graph, and it actually shows you a raw model forecast. It's a computer model, so you have to interpret it. We use this data every single day. In fact, I'm the forecaster on duty for Pacific Power right now. One of our area managers called me today. One of Kevin's team members called me today asking about some weather that's coming up this weekend. And I made the forecast this morning. So right now, I'm doing the work. Not just here to talk to you guys. I'm here to tell you that we're working on this every single day of the year. So check it out, pacificpowerweather.com, pretty cool. You can geek out on the weather stuff there if you want. If you have questions about how it works, I can show you afterward. Please come up. I'm an open book, and I've got my laptop here, and we can navigate the website. But it's got our computer model. It's got the American GFS model, the National Blend of Models. For those who are kind of weather geeks, you kind of know what I'm talking about. The European Forecast Center model as well, or famously known as the Euro. You might have heard that on TV reports and stuff like that. All that data is available up there. Radar, temperature maps, etc. And it covers right here in Clatsop County. But what's really important about that is we use those weather stations, those weather data, as data points in order to calculate what fire weather variables are relevant to the situation at hand, right? Some of those things include fuel moisture, live fuel moistures and dead fuel moistures. For those who are aware of how fire works, fire is burning anything out there in the forest or anything out there in the grasslands. So you need to know how much moisture is available in the live fuels, the herbaceous and the woody fuels, but also in the dead fuels, the duff and the stuff that's on the forest floor, or the grass that grew last summer that's still on the field as a dead fuel, available fuel for a potential fire. They all have moisture values. This time of year, we're lush green, right? We're in green up. We are at the time of year where fire concern is low, and the veg management folks, they know how this works, and a lot of the firefighters do too as well. The plants are at their moist. They have the most amount of moisture available. We're at our greenest. So this is the time of year that we love. We love green up. We wish we could extend it all the way to winter. Then we wouldn't be having these conversations. But unfortunately, it's not the way it works. Eventually, the fuels do dry out, some years more than others, and when they cure, we start getting concerned about wildfire. So we use those data points to talk about, to rather calculate that, and using our own computer model, which I'm going to talk more about. There it is. There's the domain for that weather forecast model. We call it a weather research forecast model. It's our own high-resolution model. And it does all the things you get from a normal weather forecast, like temperature, wind, humidity, dew point, vapor pressure, etc., clouds, rain, lightning. We have a lightning parameter. But in addition to that, we have fire weather variables, the same stuff that they're using from at NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center, and the forecasters who work for them, and the BLM and the other, the National Forest Service and the National Weather Service. So using those fire weather variables, we use the same ones in order to forecast the fire danger right here in Clatsop County and all across the Pacific Northwest. And we also use it to calculate the fuel moistures. Again, live fuel, dead fuel moistures, because that has an impact on the ability for fire to start and how quick it spreads. And we do that using our high-resolution model. It's a 2-kilometer model. It's got 1 million square miles. It covers across the western United States. We run the model twice a day and on our own computers that we own. They're high-performance computing clusters. I'm not a data science guy, so I always have trouble with those terms. But the idea is that we run those models in-house twice a day. I looked at them this morning. I'll look at them again tonight before I go to bed, as I'm the forecaster on duty, to see what the fire danger is. Right now, as I said, with green up, we're not super concerned. And we don't work in a vacuum, of course. We work with our partners. We've got meetings with other utilities. I was just on a meeting with Arizona Public Service this morning. We have meetings coming up with PGE next week. We work with other utilities, all the California utilities, all the Washington utilities. Anybody that is working on this community-wide problem, we're working on this with them. We work with the National Weather Service. We work with the Forest Service. We'll work with the Geographical Area Coordination Centers, the folks who help determine where fire resources go throughout the United States. They have forecasters as well, and we're on daily calls with them throughout the summertime during the fire season. It's a community problem. It's a problem that we all need to work to solve together. Okay. I feel like I'm taking a long time, talking long, so I'm going to skip to the last part. This is my last slide. And I'm going to talk about our fire risk model. So we actually have a fire risk model. What it does is it's from a company called, advanced model. You can actually simulate wildfires with it. It's pretty interesting stuff. They've been doing this for 2, almost 3 decades now. And we use their software in tandem with our computer model, our weather model, the one I just mentioned. So we take our weather model, use that as the weather base, and then we take their fire model, put it on top of that, and we use that as our base in order to get the weather conditions for the fires that we simulate. We run simulations in the background every single day, and we use those simulations, those background simulations, to assign a fire risk score. We use that to say, okay, this is what the fire risk is in this particular area every single day of the year. We can look at it anytime we want, every single day of the year. What I'm going to show you is another aspect of that software. It's called Wildfire Analyst, and you can actually, like I mentioned, simulate a fire. So I want to reiterate, you all are aware, this is a simulation, not an actual fire that ever happened. But if a fire were to have start at this particular location, just above us here in Astoria, this is how it would have behaved on the 7th day of July. So I ran the model myself. I did a screen capture video of this, and I ran the model, and this is how that fire more or less would have behaved right in the middle of summer. You remember how hot we were by July 7th of last year? It was hot. Doesn't spread a lot. This is an 8-hour simulation, but it gives you an idea of what the fire might do, and we can use this information in order to inform operations in case there is a wildfire. We could say, hey, there's a wildfire in this spot. They may ask us, what do you think is going to happen? We use this data in order to say, okay, well, this is an area that we need to be concerned about. Again, it's the simulation. We like to, sometimes I just run simulations just out of a practice and just to see how a fire would behave. I like to check against actual fires that actually exist. We can actually run the models and do that. There's actually, there's a video that runs on our display there from the Smith River complex. It was a big fire in California a couple years ago, and we have the same simulation running over there. So you can see how the fire was forecast to behave. And that was one of those times where we actually had to take action because of a wildfire that was moving in towards our transmission line. So it's pretty cool stuff. So I can talk more about that if you have any questions about that a little bit later. It's got an advanced fuel model. It's pretty amazing how in-depth this company goes. And they're making the model better every year. They come back and they make improvements every year. We get new versions of the software with better algorithms. They're using artificial intelligence now to improve the score of the model. Again, it's a model, though. It's never going to be perfect, but it gives you a good idea of how fire would behave if it were in this part of Clatsop County. Last plug is for PacificPowerWeather.com. As I mentioned before, you can get our weather data up there. This is an example of some of the weather station data that you can see up there. Eventually, you'll see, I click on one of the weather stations, and you'll see a graph pop up. Again, you can see our weather stations. You can see our computer model data. You can get National Weather Service model data as well there. It's open to anyone. You don't need a login or anything. PacificPowerWeather.com. Check it out. What's great about it is other people are using it, National Weather Service, firefighters. I talked to some firefighters out in Sherman County. I said, I'm going to try to get your weather station onto our page. So we will work with people to try to get information out there for you. So just use it at will. If you have any questions about it, please come to me. I'm happy to explain how it works and how to navigate the website. But essentially, we're using that. I use that every single day when I'm forecasting to see what the wind is doing and what the humidity is doing in the summertime. So it's valuable information that us forecasters use, and I hope you can get some information, some good information out of it as well. Okay, with that said, I've kind of talked about the short-term lowering of the risk. How do we lower that risk of a wildfire and critical fire behavior and et cetera, and protect the community in the long term? Melissa's going to talk more about that, so I'd like to introduce her, our Director of Wildfire Mitigation Program Delivery.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm glad you could come and join us this evening for our Wildfire Forum. As Chester said, my name is Melissa Swenson, and I'm the Director of Wildfire Mitigation Delivery. And I'm really glad to be back in Astoria. I've been coming out to this part of the coast for many, many years. Spent many damp spring breaks bicycling around Fort Stevens. Every spring break in Oregon, beautiful, but very wet. So very glad to be out here on a really beautiful day to talk to you about what we're doing to build a more resilient system and how we operate that system to prevent wildfires. So really, when we talk about resiliency, we're talking about strengthening the system to make it more resilient to hazards. And this can mean doing things like putting in covered conductor or aerial spacers, in some circumstances putting our wires underground, as well as putting in more fire resilient poles. And I'll point you over to our boards over there and you can see some examples of equipment. As Chester said, I'm not offended if you go up and take a look. Please go take a look if you're interested in while I'm talking. So when we're talking about covered conductor, if you think about if you're driving down the road and you see poles and wires on the road, chances are really good that the wire is bare. And if something blows into it, like a branch or a balloon or something like that, and it comes into contact with that wire, that could create a spark. And if there's a spark, that means that we could have an ignition and a potential fire. So what we do with covered conductor is put a layer of insulation around wire. So we have to go install this wire with the insulation on it, but what it does is it makes it more resistant to if something blows into it, the odds of ignition happening because, say, a balloon hits it or a branch or a tree or leaf hits it goes down. So I think of it very much like we don't have bare wires on our appliances in our house. We have a layer of insulation on them so we don't get a spark if something comes into contact of it. Much higher voltage, but very similar principle. And when we talk about aerial spacers, if you've ever watched the wind blow wires sometimes when it blows really hard and you see the wires start to move back and forth, the wind's blowing too hard or it's whipping around too much, those wires can clash into each other. And again, if you have a contact, you could potentially have a spark, have an ignition. What aerial spacers do is hold the wires apart. So if the wind blows, they're going to move in unison and they're not going to clash together. And then when we talk about fire-resistant poles, what we're talking about are poles that are steel or fiberglass that are more resilient to fire. So they are different than the wooden poles that you typically see that hang, when you're driving down the road. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing around the system strengthening and resiliency. So as of the end of last year, we had completed 175 miles of overhead covered conductor hardening in our plan. And then this year, our plan is to complete about another 175 miles of hardening by the end of the year. And by the end of March, we completed about 67 miles of that. So we've made some really good progress there. And we're also continuing work on things around advanced system protection. And these are upgrades to devices known as relays, reclosers, and communicating fault current indicators. There's no quiz on knowing those, guys. Promise. So you could think of these devices as working in partnership. So the relays and reclosers are on lines, and they are listening and feeling for taps on the line, for branches, for balloons to tap on the line. And they're sensing is there a hit on the line, and they'll shut off the power within fractions of a second. What those communicating devices do is then send the message back to our grid operations center going, hey, there's a power outage out here. Here's the general location of it. So then we can send our crews out to go take a look and see what's going on and fix the problem and get you restored more quickly. But we like having those because, again, that more sensitive, if we can shut it off more quickly, means we reduce the risk of a spark on the line. But we also know that you guys want your power on as soon as we fix a problem. So those devices that communicate back help us identify where the problem is and get it fixed for you as quickly as we can. So just to give you an idea of where we're doing some of those hardening efforts, those insulated cables that cover conductor. There in the middle, you have a map of Oregon, and then you can see in a zoom in around it some of the locations that we are doing our hardening this year. And those are all in those areas that we call the fire high consequence, those areas in purple, because those are areas of the most fire risk. And so mostly in Southern Oregon and a little bit in Hood River. And what I like about this view is you can see some of the complexity that goes into replacing our wires with this cover conductor. So we think of poles and wires, maybe ending at the end of our street or the end of the road. A circuit can go for miles. So it could take, at least a year to do planning before we even start to do the construction. Because it's a pretty complex process, and we want to make sure as we're replacing that cover conductor, those wires with cover conductor, we keep the power on for you as well while we're doing that. One of the other things we do is vegetation management, and this is happening all across our service area, even right here at Astoria in Clatsop County. And this can look like things like looking from the air or from the ground for limbs and lines, vegetation under equipment, or hazardous trees that dead, diseased, you take a look at them, hopefully you don't have any around your house where you're looking at them going, ooh, that doesn't look great, a good wind will blow that over. We want to take care of those if they are near our lines. So we want to make sure that our lines are clear of vegetation, and that there's no vegetation on the ground or near our poles. Because again, if there's a tap on the line from something, a tree, balloon, something else that causes a spark, we don't want there to be anything around it that could cause an ignition source that could cause a fire to spread. And then another thing we are also doing is checking our equipment and inspecting it on a regular basis. So in our areas of fire high consequences, purple areas, we're out there pretty frequently doing very detailed inspections. But also across our entire service area, every year we are doing what we call safety patrols. So we are going out and driving by and looking at our equipment and going, how do things look? Do they look okay? Is there something that looks off? And if there is, we're going to issue a ticket and make sure that we get the problem taken care of. So now we're going to talk about how we operate our system safely. And as Chester talked about a little bit, last year was a record year for fires in Oregon, and actually for wildfires across the U.S. So last year, there were more than 61,000 fires across the U.S. that burned 8.8 million acres. So 2 million of those acres were in Oregon. I don't want to be number one in that ever again. There are lots of things I want us to be number one in. This is not one of them. In Pacific Power's service area in Oregon last year, of those 2,000 fires, 165 of them were in our service area. So Nora and her team in emergency management spent all summer and into the fall monitoring those fires to make sure that we understood what was going on so that we could operate the system safely and keep you all safe. So as Chester said, we're always monitoring those conditions every day that could cause a spark. And we want to make sure that you are aware of some steps that we can take to make sure that we're keeping you all safe during those conditions. And so those could include placing settings on circuits to be more sensitive. So those devices I talked about that can feel a tap on the line, they can be made more sensitive to shut off the power more quickly. And that's known as enhanced safety settings. We can also de-energize circuits when the fire is too close to our equipment, and those are known as emergency de-energizations, or as a last resort, a public safety power shutoff when the weather forecast and fuels conditions are forecast to create a really extreme fire risk. And Nora's going to talk about that in some more detail. So now I'm going to share a video to explain a little better how we might use those de-energizations to prevent wildfires.
Pacific Power, we're committed to providing the safe, reliable service you count on every day. During conditions such as gusting winds and hot, dry weather, and in areas near trees and other types of vegetation that could ignite, we need to take certain steps to prevent wildfires and reduce their impacts. While these safety measures may interrupt your service, they can prevent catastrophic wildfire events. Let's look at 3 of the ways we help protect communities and prevent wildfires. The first is enhanced safety settings. During times when wildfire risk is elevated, we will adjust the sensitivity of some of our equipment. With these settings activated, our lines will de-energize within fractions of a second if a line is contacted by debris, wildlife, or strong winds, reducing the risk of a fire ignition. Because of this, there's an increased potential for power to be disrupted and remain off until field crews can visually inspect the lines before power can be safely restored. Next is the public safety power shutoff. Hotter, drier, and windier weather conditions can create heightened wildfire risk, and we may carry out a public safety power shutoff, or PSPS, shutting off power to specific targeted areas. A PSPS is done in partnership with local public safety partners. If a PSPS is likely to occur, we attempt to notify customers that power may be turned off and to keep affected communities informed throughout a de-energization. Once we've determined that the fire risk has passed, we will safely re-energize lines and restore service. Emergency de-energization is another wildfire prevention method that may result in a disruption of your power. When an active wildfire moves close enough to threaten burning into our lines or equipment, we will begin monitoring the fire closely to evaluate its potential spread and impact to our systems. If the fire is moving too close to our equipment, we will complete an emergency de-energization of our power lines. This process helps us prevent additional wildfires and protect first responders. Here at Pacific Power, we're dedicated to keeping our customers safe while delivering the power that our communities count on every day. During times of extreme weather events, when wildfire risk is at its highest, our wildfire prevention measures will help protect our customers and the communities we serve. To learn more, visit us at pacificpower.net/wildfire.
So as you saw from the video, and I talked about a little earlier, we may turn off the power in a variety of circumstances to prevent wildfires from starting or reduce the impact of ongoing fires. So on the screen there, you can see the location of our 2024 enhanced safety setting outages, and those are in red, and then our emergency de-energizations in blue. So we have the whole state on the right, and then in the middle we have those events within a 25-mile radius of Astoria. So last year, there were 15 enhanced safety settings related outages, in that 25-mile radius around Astoria, and one emergency de-energization related outage. And that's where fire's coming too close to our equipment, so we may turn off the power, or emergency management may ask us to turn off the power so that they can fight the fire safely. And it's also a good reminder that even if we live out here at the coast, the wind blows a lot, but also and it's damp a lot of the time, but sometimes are conditions that mean that there's a risk, and so we may place those devices and those lines on more sensitive settings because we think that the risk is there, so we want to make sure that we're operating the system safely. And we also want you to know what will happen if we're doing those sorts of changes. So, and what to expect during wildfire season. So when we place circuits on enhanced safety settings at the beginning of our season, you will receive an email or letter letting you know that we've made that change. And if you aren't sure how you get communication from us, please check with our customer service team over here, and they'll be happy to either update how you want to be your communication preference, or check and make sure that it's the preference that you want. If we do have an advanced enhanced safety setting outage, you'll receive an outage notification based off of the preference you have for those notifications, whether it be text, email, or phone. And if you aren't sure what type of alert you're signed up for, again, please check with the customer service team. They're happy to help you either get set up for alerts or make sure that you're getting the alerts in the way that you want. If there's an emergency de-energization, if we have time, we will send you a pending de-energization notification. So again, if the fire is moving too quick, we may not have time to do that, but if there is time, we'll give you a pending notification. But if we don't have time, we will notify you as soon as the power is out, that there's an outage and what's going on. Again, using phone, text, or email. And we also had feedback from customers last year that, hey, if there's an enhanced safety setting outage or an emergency de-energization outage, let us know what's going on. So we are updating our outage map this year to put that information on the outage map. So if you happen to have an outage, and you can go to the outage map, and if that outage is on a circuit with enhanced safety settings or it's due to an emergency de-energization from a fire, we'll let you know that information there so that you guys can be informed about what's going on. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nora to talk more about public safety power shutoffs and emergency preparedness.
Thank you. First of all, before I start, I want to thank you for coming on such a beautiful day to hear about what we're doing and hear about how you can help your community. We really appreciate it and really appreciate your interest. So I'm hoping you're saving some questions for the team afterwards. I also want to recognize the table in the middle back here. There's a good group of public safety partners. We have Oregon Department of Forestry. We have the Seaside and Astoria Fire Departments represented here, and our 911 center is, thanks Jeremy for coming. So really appreciate the partnership. I'm going to jump into what Melissa ended with, public safety power shutoffs. How many of you are familiar with what a public safety power shutoff is before tonight? Okay. Well, fortunately, you have not had one here. We've only had one large event throughout Oregon that was in September of 2022. And we didn't have to do that here, but there's a variety of considerations that we want to talk about. So Chester touched on that quite a bit. Three components that we really consider is for public safety power shutoffs is when it's no longer safe to operate our system under extreme conditions. So that includes how dry is the vegetation, what does the terrain look like? Is it thick grassland and very windy? Is it a tall, steep, heavily forested area? What kind of conditions are the weather? Is it windy? Is it hot? Is it dry? And then will it impact communities? Those are the considerations we look at. And I want to quickly touch on how we will communicate with you. For all intents and purposes, it's really a planned outage. We know in advance. We usually have a pretty good idea about 5 days out. And as those 5 days we get closer to the potential impact, we start to know more and more precisely where this could occur. And that's directly from our meteorology team. 3 days out, we would contact our local public safety partners here, the table in the middle, and start talking about what we anticipate to happen. We start contacting our emergency support function number 12, which is for energy in the state of Oregon, and other public utility partners that may be impacted in the areas as well, because we all overlap and touch our boundaries together. So we start communicating that. We want to know a couple of things. We want to know, are there any critical facilities that will lose power that don't have backup generation? That we want to make sure we mitigate that. Critical facilities meaning like a care facility or a school that maybe serves as a shelter or other facility that you really need in the community. And then we also want to know if we should set up a community resource center. And a good example may actually be this armory, or it may be a standalone location. We have these self-contained tents that we can do. And the community resource center is, unlike a shelter, it's not open overnight, but open during extended hours. During the public safety power shutoff, those that are impacted can come and get information. They can come get power their devices, get snacks, get on Wi-Fi, a variety of services that we offer for the impacted customers. So we consider where would be a good place to open one up. And then 2 days in advance, we start communicating with you directly as the customer. We'll send you a text, an email, a phone call, letting you know that there's a potential for your power to be turned off because the conditions are so extreme and it's no longer safe for us to operate. These outages tend to be fairly short duration. We go back into normal conditions, but the power will not be restored until it's safe to do so. So once the conditions have passed, we communicate again saying the conditions have passed. Before we can restore your power, we have to go and patrol the lines, make sure that there's no damage. We often find damage, so we have to correct the damage, fix it, and then start restoring. And then our final communication with you is to let you know that the power's turned back on. And we do that for several reasons. One of them is if you had a place to go and you chose to not stay home, you now know it's safe to come home and your power's restored. But also, if your power's not on, then we ask that you let us know so that way we can troubleshoot and find out the cause of the outage, which may be unrelated. So a lot of communication methods, but it's all very contingent on us having the appropriate contact information. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. I want to briefly now touch on how we've grown as a team and what we're doing to help mitigate the wildfire. So we have split out our emergency management team. We've added 2 new components to our program. Traditionally, emergency management did all of this work, but with the 2024 season, we found that we needed to really expand and grow. So one of the things that we're doing in addition to our traditional program is we're standing up a wildfire intelligence center. This will be a 24/7 watch desk of sorts. Some of you may be familiar with what that is, but we have teams that will be on site, on premise, with technology. We have custom-built dashboards. We're incorporating information from cameras, from a variety of applications, including the National Interagency Fire Center, some apps like Watch Duty, utilizing data miner, and a variety of different resources to monitor the situation. And this will help us get that real-time situational awareness so we can make decisions quicker, more accurately, and restore quicker as well. Additionally, we're developing fire emergency response managers. These are deployable personnel. We have a great team already. We have 4 hired in the area. We have Southern Oregon, Eastern Washington, Central Oregon as well. These are former CAL FIRE chiefs and incident management team type individuals. They will work directly with incident management teams on site to help make sure we understand their priorities, what to turn off, what to turn on, what to restore, getting access to do repairs and so forth for large fires. So we're super excited about these capabilities that we're building. So now I want to talk about what you can do. And for those of you that are here, you're here because you care, and you're here because you're interested in making sure that we have a safe and thriving community. So quick question for everybody. How many of you have an actual emergency plan that you've noted down in written plans? Okay, 2 hands. All right. So I really want to encourage you to think about this. It's free, it doesn't cost anything. There's resources available. We have resources in our handouts, and there's also resources at the table over here. Think about what you need to know when a disaster happens. And I'm not talking about a big disaster even. It could be you losing your phone or your phone breaking. Do you have all your phone numbers memorized or written down somewhere? Do you know how to contact people if you just have a minor thing like, your phone is gone? Do you have your insurance information, your medical information? Does your family have a plan as to where to meet if you can't come home? If you have kids in school or loved ones in a care facility or something like that, do you all know where you can meet, or do you have an out-of-state contact that you can get a hold of to make sure everybody in check-in and everybody's okay? So very personalized to what you need, but all you have to do is just take a piece of paper or use one of the free templates available online and just start filling the information out. How many of you, hopefully there's a few more hands, have an emergency kit? Excellent, okay, that's great. This, again, takes effort. It does cost money and resources, but we highly encourage you to start developing a personalized kit for yourself. You can easily buy ones off the shelf from stores, but a lot of considerations need to be very personalized for what you need. So think about shelf-stable food that you will eat, or that makes sure they address your dietary issues that you may have in your household. Think about if you have children or pets. Do you have comfort items for children? Children can get very, very scared during a disaster, and so having those comfort items to bring back some normalcy, to them is really important. Do you have individuals that may rely on medical equipment or assistive devices? Do you have backups for those? there's a lot of considerations to take, and you don't have to do it all in one weekend. You can take your time. You can do one thing a month, one thing a week to build your kit, but I highly encourage you to consider that at this time and start working towards that goal. And before you know it, having that resiliency is really, really beneficial. And then my final question for you is, for those of you that have home or land, do you know about defensible space, or do you practice any of the elements of defensible space? Okay, great, thank you. So there's a variety of considerations for you to think about. It could be as simple as labor, just to make sure you're properly trimming and you have the proper practices, you're not keeping your firewood right up against your house. It could be that you're investing into the proper shingles, or you're closing off your vents so that way embers can't get into the house. A variety of different methods that you can apply, but it has been proven that wildfires that come through communities, homes have a much greater chance of surviving a wildfire if appropriate defensible space techniques are practiced. Again, we have information available here as well for you to consider that. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is the resources that we have for you. Many of you may have in your family either yourself or someone that you know, a loved one, whether it's a family member, a neighbor, or a friend, that has a vulnerability, especially if they have a medical device that requires electricity. It's very challenging for some people to operate or be healthy and safe during a power outage, and that can occur at any point in time. So we have put together a one webpage site. It's our website /accessibility, and it gives you all the resources that we can provide. For customers that have a need for electricity, they can apply for a medical certificate program, and it provides them a variety of resources that we have. We communicate additionally for PSPS events and make sure that they have what they need. We have language support as well that's available with live individuals. Our customer service is always a person answering the phone, it's not a recording. And then we assist with bill payment as well, which is really great. And finally, if you do have a device in a medical certificate program and you're under the program, you can get up to a $4,000 rebate for a backup generation, which is great because that generation can help support not just the device, but potentially additional resources throughout the house. So if you know somebody, please share this information and please make sure that you access these services that we have. And then finally, just a last plug, our customer service is here. Please feel free after we end here to come and talk with them, confirm your contact information is correct, because as you've heard now, that's how we communicate with you, so it's really important for us to know your contact information. If you don't have time today or don't want to do that, we have a 800 number, or you can log on to your account online. Please make sure that you sign up for our emergency alerts as well. There's a website and the QR code, and then that way we can, again, communicate anytime that there's a potential power impact. And with that, I will wrap it up and give it back to Helen.
Thanks, Nora. So if you are interested in seeing our wildfire mitigation plan for the state of Oregon, or any of the other states that we operate in, those are available on our website, pacificorp.com/safety, or using the QR code right up there. That's it for the prepared remarks that we have tonight.